but hope everyone is doing well this morning. In the midst of all that's going on in our world and in our country, people are still hanging in there, staying resilient, staying persistent. And so it's an honor for us to once again join you this morning. We have an incredible speaker, a great friend of mine, a brother of mine, in fact, I was telling the team, he's known me far too long. So I hope he doesn't get a chance to share any of my baggage. But I'm excited to bring him before this community this morning. So without further ado, it's my privilege and honor to first introduce Matt Killian, our Chief Operating Officer at WorkFaith Connection, my brother, from a different mother, as I like to say, who's in the trenches with me on a daily basis, helping to support the work we do at WorkFaith. And so, Matt, without further ado, we want to turn it over to you.
Thanks. Let me say a quick prayer to open us up here. Father God, Lord Jesus, I thank you so much for this day. I thank you for Chris and Anthony and everybody here at WorkFaith. We're able to gather and just give you praise and glory. I ask that you be with us in this meeting today as you just kind of open our hearts and minds to the information that Chris is going to share with us, and just be with us during this time. We ask all this in your holy and precious name, Lord. Amen. All right. Well, thank you, Anthony, Chris. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. I know we got a lot to get to, so I'm going to make this quick. As previously mentioned, WorkFaith exists to build faith and career skills for the marketplace. We provide faith-based training and coaching for anybody that desires long-term employment, and our faith-based program helps disadvantaged job seekers navigate through challenges that they experience in life, just like what everybody in the world is experiencing right now during this current pandemic. We got caught by surprise just like everybody else, but fortunately we rebounded quickly, and we launched our entire program that was once in person into a complete virtual model. So we have our courses, coaching, and community all in the virtual space. Again, our services are offered to anybody that are seeking long-term employment, purpose, and fulfillment. Through this model, we've been able to serve and graduate 243 students from our 5-day boot camp. On average, we have about 22 people per class. Out of those 243, almost 80% of all the students expressed interest in our coaching, and they actually take part in our career coaching services. In the past 3 months, a total of over 5,000 faith-based workforce development training hours have been conducted, resulting in restored hope, confidence, faith, and employment. Post-boot camp activity has also increased. The services are designed for in-job search technique and strategy, as well as instruction on how to keep the job once they get the job. Students are actively engaged in the virtual WorkFaith Academy classes, our group and individual coaching, our financial peace classes, resume writing 101, mock interviewing, and networking with a purpose. We've got a ton of projects in the hopper for 21 and 22 that will greatly increase our numbers on an annual basis for the people that we serve and that benefit from our services. So to make it real, I'm going to throw out some numbers. Once I say them, we're committed to them. So by June 2021, the scaling of our digital program will help us serve over 6,000 disadvantaged job seekers, growing their faith and career skills to attain employment. Look, the deal is oh, excuse me. I lost something here. Yeah, so the deal is that by training people here at WorkFaith, we're closing the skills gap, and we're providing a better and more skilled workforce that provides people a stable life through employment and faith. It helps employers gain a competitive advantage in the marketplace through a skilled workforce. And we'll have a community where poverty is reduced and pathways to success are expanded. Last but not least, our economy will flourish with increased job creation and reduced costs for assistance programs. So really, WorkFaith has been positioned for this time by God to make a tremendous impact that creates a ripple effect that will be felt nationwide. I ask everybody to continue to stay plugged in. And with that, I'll give it back to you, Anthony. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt, for that update. And as Matt stated, you all, we have really taken on some bold predictions for what we truly believe we can make an impact, or areas where we can make an impact in 2021. And so we're delighted to work as a team. This entire team is really coming together to really make it possible for us to do work that, frankly, our organization hadn't seen. You know, having to make that pivot, go digital over the course of just a matter of 60 days, our team really rallied together to make that happen. So hats off to our team and to everybody involved in that process. Well, I'm honored this morning, you all, to have this opportunity to interview, man, a great friend of mine, a brother. Chris has known me. Chris Winton is his name. And Chris and I met through working at a grocery store in high school. So oddly enough, some people have heard me tell this story before. When I was in 8th grade, I actually had an 8th grade teacher pull me aside and say, Anthony, I'm going to help you get a transfer to Germantown High School. We're not going to let you go to Kirby High School. And so this teacher of mine who saw potential in me said, hey, Kirby is trending in the wrong direction. We don't want you to go to Kirby High School. So you're going to take Latin or German as a foreign language. And that's going to be your excuse not to go to Kirby High School. And I bring that story up because sure enough, I decided to forego going to Kirby High School. I went to Germantown High School. I took Latin all the way through because, according to my teacher, you know, there was not a lot of positive happening for the future of Kirby High School. Well, Chris Winton happened to be one of those young men who attended Kirby High School. And so he and I met at a grocery store. We lived in the same neighborhood. I just happened to get transferred to another school outside of that neighborhood. So Chris could tell you about some of the challenges that were faced in that community, in that neighborhood. And his story is directly aligned with that. So we both come from really overcoming some major obstacles and hurdles in our lives. And so I'm going to let Chris tell you more from his perspective today. And so, Chris, man, what an honor to have you here. And also, I would love for you to just open up and tell a little bit about yourself. And so I don't want to steal your thunder. And then, of course, we'll get into our interview together. So, but man, what an honor to have you here, brother.
Look, well, I'm going to first say shout out to Derek Moore there. I see you, alum of Kirby High School. So, you know, shout out to the Cougars, but excited to meet everyone here. One thing I will say about this brother, Anthony Flynn, I have known him since way back when, and I can attest to this. He's been that same ambitious, driven, gonna make a difference in every life he meets since he was 16 years old. And you sit there and wonder, how does a man keep that much energy? It's because he truly believes in everything he says, and he's been that way since he was 16 years old. So anytime he calls me, I say, man, I'm all in. So a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, obviously a graduate of Kirby High School. And in school, I was a C student because the environment was trending in the wrong direction. And I always say there's difference between a C student, or a C student is kind of like being the middle kid. And to any of the middle kids that got an older sibling and a younger sibling, being a C student is kind of like that. And so my parents used to always introduce Rodney as the oldest and Brandy, here's my youngest. Oh, and here's Chris. So that's what it was like in school being the C student. Because in high school, you know, here's the A students. All right, these are the kids that are going to go off to college. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. And then to the F students, it's like, you can do better. You need to do better. And then to the C students, it was a pat on the head. Hey, you did your best. So I was that kid walking around school every day, was like, you did your best. So, but I was okay with that because I had my job there at the grocery store. Anthony and I were working together. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to be a grocery store manager. That's going to be my path. And so I was working my way up to get into management. But one day, my senior year in high school, I had a work permit to leave, and I was headed to that same grocery store. And the guidance counselor stopped me. And she said, Chris, I know you're headed to work, but I want you to hear this presentation. And the presentation was from a nonprofit called Inroads. And Inroads' mission was to identify and develop young, talented minorities in underserved communities and prepare them to one day be leaders in corporate America and in their communities. So I go in, I go, okay, I'll sit in. They put up 3.0 GPA on the screen. So I get up and walk out. I see Isabella, Inroads intern, represent. But I get up and walk out because I didn't have a 3.0 GPA. And so the representative from Inroads steps into the hallway and says, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to hear your story. And that was the first person in my life that ever asked, why are you a C student? And why don't you have that 3.0 GPA? And what I explained to them was, both of my parents are working 2 jobs. And I'm tired of seeing my mom work 2 jobs. So my older brother and I agreed we would go to work so that we can cover those bills so that my mom didn't have to work 2 jobs. And based on that, he said, well, we're going to make an exception and let you into the Inroads program. And lo and behold, I show up that first day in Inroads, and who's the star of the show sitting right across? You guessed it, Mr. Anthony Flynn. So I knew, I was like, I got to bring my A game every day to this program. But I first asked, well, who's going to pay for this? Because I'm struggling to pay bills at home. And they said, well, we have companies that'll sponsor you. I said, well, who's my sponsor? And they said, it's actually FedEx. And I go, okay, well, what's my agreement with FedEx? They said, well, when you go to college, you'll intern with FedEx while you're going through this program. And then, you know, hopefully if you're successful, FedEx will hire you. So I started FedEx as an intern through Inroads in '97 and have moved up, and most of my career was actually in IT. So my last role in IT was director of our enterprise global data centers and command center. So I had global watch of every package that you're ordering right now that's being delivered to you. Yes or no, I did not sleep. So went through those years, and that's the lines you see. But then decided to switch over to HR and shift careers. And we can definitely have some conversation on what created that desire to want to shift and pivot to ultimately now my role as Senior Vice President of HR at our Fedex Ground company, which the Fedex Ground company represents about 23 billion of FedEx's $70 billion revenue. We have 160,000 employees. And just to give you a sense of scale, I hired 40,000 package handlers in the month of September. So, and on track to probably hire 30,000 in the month of October. So business is growing. It's a massive need, and there is an opportunity to have careers from a non-traditional path into opportunities. And I'm excited to work with organizations like WorkFaith on how to do it.
Well, man, what an incredible story, brother. And again, thank you so much for sharing. You know, you and I both, our trajectories, high school, Inroads, God has been good to us for sure. You know, Chris, you know
Amen to that, brother.
I want you to tell the story just because I think it's fascinating. You know, frankly, some of the trauma, some of the challenges we experience as children, and yet we're still here. Can you briefly tell the story of literally being held up at gunpoint? Why, you know, because the reality, and I bring that up to say that, you know, you and I have essentially navigated some heavy terrains in our lives, and some of our peers didn't make it out of those terrains. Yeah. Something in you kept you going. And so can you tell that story? Because I want people to hear that story. I think it's powerful.
Yeah, sure thing. And I grew up, you know, traditional Baptist church in Memphis, but never really understood what it was at that age to have a relationship with God. But of course, once you look back, you could start to connect the dots of the path. But there was a moment there in high school at the grocery store. Actually, it was two moments. So I had worked my way up to the, overseeing the customer service area, which basically meant at the end of the day, I counted down all the cash registers and put the money in the safe. So we were closing the store one night, and, Robert comes in. My manager sees what's going on, and, he was 20 years old. I'm 17 years old. So he sees, and he runs out the back door. And before I could kind of get my bearings and see what was going on, there was a gun to my face. And so at that moment, obviously I just start putting money in the bag and, just praying to survive. The robber looks at me and then just runs out the door. And so obviously overcoming that event was traumatic in of itself. But what happened 3 months later was what really changed my whole life at this point, because I had a mentor there that was one of the older store managers who really would talk to me about, you can be more than a store manager at this grocery store, and talk to me about the importance of why I should go to college. But we were robbed again during the day while I was at school. But this time the robbers came in and a shootout occurred. My manager and mentor was shot and killed, as well as one of the robbers. And that night when I got home, I was scheduled to work. And so I told my dad, I'm not going to work. Matter of fact, I quit. It's too much. And he looked at me with this serious, unemotional look and said, are they open tonight? Call and see. And so when I called to check, they closed for several hours, obviously, while the police did their work, and, the appropriate people were there to address the situation. But they opened the store later that night. He said, well, if the store is open, you're going to work. And now I was like, wait, help me understand. Of course, my mom's like, you crazy. My son is not going to that place where they just had a shootout. And Dad said, I will not let you fall down and stay there. Life is going to hit you. You got to face it. Get up and go. And so that night, 16, 17 years old, I'm working, standing on blood-soaked carpet. And that image stuck with me. And I just go back through the whole journey of life, and even in the scripture, when these events happen, and he goes, the mission is still forward. We are here to help pull other people up, and you can't let anything stop you from the mission. And so yeah, that stuck with me, and still impacts me to this day.
Well, and Chris, I wanted, because, speaking candidly, and I know this is an interview, but a lot of times our team too, right? Like you mentioned the passion that I've had since you've known me, and I've known you to have and exhibit that same passion. And man, I like to say that a large part of that comes from our ability to pull from the pain of our stories and to pull from the pain of our lives. So pain and trauma drive me, and so I think for many people, and this is something I love for you to speak to, how a lot of the clients we serve on a daily basis, they've been through a lot. They've been through challenges. They've been through pain. They've lived in poverty. They've overcome addiction. They've come out of prison. And one of the things we try to do at WorkFaith is continue to work to help them understand the value of leveraging their story, leveraging their trauma, leveraging their pain. Talk a little bit about how you've continued using that incident. I could share, you and I could go back and forth. Stories, but talk about how, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you triggered a thought there. You and I have realized that the pains of our past has actually become our competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
Because I overcame that, hiring 40,000 people. Oh, that's easy work.
That's
Look, somebody that's coming out of the prison system and re-entering and getting them on a career path. Oh, that's easy work. Mm-hmm. We overcame that. And I think I like to call it a Neo moment. If everybody remember that movie, The Matrix, the first one, when Morpheus sits in front of Neo and goes, "You are the one." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He's like, No, you're the one. but you must choose red pill or blue pill. And if you choose the blue pill, I will show you the matrix. But if you choose the red pill, you get to stay in your current world, thinking that you know what success really looks like.
Yeah.
And what I say, that choice before you now with those life events in your past is, it's bitter or better.
Mm-hmm.
Red pill or blue pill.
Yep.
If you choose to let those events make you better, we can show you the matrix on now how to be successful from it. But if you let it keep you in bitterness, then you're going to stay in the world you're in right now. And there's actually nothing I can do to help you. There is a choice, and you are Neo. This is your Neo moment.
Oh, that's beautiful. And a lot of people can't make that leap, Chris. And, you know, you and I, we've had conversations about our children and how we've done everything we could to put them in the best position to win. And sometimes you know, we're concerned actually that the things that drove us, the things that motivate us even to this day, were sometimes associated with dark moments or traumatizing moments in our lives. And so, you know, you and I share that in common. It's a privilege for us now, looking back, to have had those dark moments, to have had those traumatizing, you know, seasons of life. So many people aren't able to overcome that. And, you know, talk a little bit about that, like in your, and by the way, let me reemphasize, you're hiring approximately, you know, 9,000 people a week, you know, 40,000 people a month. You know, what do you think is happening with some of that attrition? You've shared some with me, but I'd love for you to share with this community here at large.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the jobs that we're hiring for in those large numbers are essentially loading and unloading trucks. So it is a physically, you know, demanding job. But what we're finding, and for me, first thing when I stepped into this job was, I got to go walk the docks. I got to go get in the truck. I would have said shake hand. Now it's fist bump, elbow bump, you know, the proper greeting now. But I got to be feet on the street with the people and meet them right where they are and go, all right, because we do have a high churn rate in those jobs. And I go, how can I help you? Like, and forget the company and what we're trying to do. What are your personal goals? And let me see if I can line that up with the business goals. And what I'm finding is most people struggle with just answering what their goal is. And so that being able to answer that, and I always say a career is like a GPS. The journey doesn't start until you set the destination. And no matter where you are, you can plot a path to that destination, but you first have to enter it. And what I found is many of our, the population we're hiring are in that either opportunity youth space where they were told, go to school, get good grades so you can get a good job with good benefits. And that's the American dream. And they go, well, that wasn't my path. You know, I had to go to work in high school to help pay bills. So then what is the path for me? And they don't know the answer to that question. And that's why, for me, the most important piece of my career and the success was the school system, the nonprofit, and the corporate America working together as vital links in the chain created a path for Chris Winton to be talking to you today. And now that's why I'm so excited to be working now with WorkFaith, because those are the ingredients. Somebody, feet on the street, meeting that person where they are, hearing their story, and then now helping them figure out that destination and creating that GPS for their career. Man, you know me, man, I get pretty pumped when I start getting that space.
Absolutely. And I fail to tell the community at large that Chris is officially on board as a board member now with us at WorkFaith. And so, you know, it's a joy to have you in the trenches. Here we are again, you know, in the trenches together. So
that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like God has called us to be lifelong partners, brother. And so we got a lot of work to do for many, many years to come. And man, Chris, talk a little bit about, give people the backstory on, you know, in light of what you just shared, finding direction with trajectory in your career. You were an IT genius. I mean, you literally, I was telling, you know, before we got on, I was telling a small group of our team members, when Chris was in Memphis. Chris is now in Pittsburgh because FedEx Ground is headquartered in Pittsburgh. But in Memphis, Tennessee, where we were born and raised, is FedEx's global headquarters, and they have also their global World Technology Center. So Chris takes me inside to their technology center, and he literally walks me in to what I call the IMAX theater. You know, this thing looked like it was a mega $1 million facility that Chris had the responsibility of erecting. So Chris has a strong IT background, and literally he shows me this screen. He walks me into this room. This command center is literally what it's called. And if you've ever received a package at FedEx or from FedEx, there on the screen, I could literally see the dots, the millions of packages all over the world. There was like this huge global map, and you could see the movement of all these dots all over this screen, this huge IMAX-like screen. And it was literally all the packages everywhere in the world being shipped. Well, Chris literally facilitated the erection of that entire facility, and he literally governed that entire team. So as he said, if you know, during his reign there, if you were receiving a package at FedEx, he oversaw that entire process. And then all of a sudden you go into HR. Like, who does that? Right? To this day, and I've met a lot of people, to this day, I still don't know another person who has made that type of a leap in their career. Can you talk, Chris, a little bit about, you have the skill set, frankly, you would have been a chief information officer, chief technology officer of a major Fortune 500 company. It was destined. And yet, in the middle of your career, knowing you had that path already laid for you, you decided to pivot. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So to kind of put some of that in context, around here, people will say, hey, Chris has had this like amazing trajectory in his career. And I always find that interesting because I've been with the company 20 years and I go, it didn't feel like it went fast. But so just for context, I started as an intern, 19 years old. At 27, I was a manager in IT. By 32, I was a director in the role Anthony talked about over our global command center. And then that was when I made the pivot, probably around age 34. And at 39, became a vice president of human resources. And then literally just 8 weeks ago, at 43. Yeah, Anthony, we're at 43 now, man.
Yeah, you're getting old. You're getting old, Chris.
Yeah. You know, accepted the role as senior vice president of HR. So that obvious question is an IT guy that's rising switches to HR. Who does that? There were two aha moments for me. The one was in that period of going from technical expert to manager in IT. And what most people don't know is I applied for manager job 5 times and got 5 what I call Dear John letters. Now, is everybody wondering what a Dear John letter is? You know, that's that letter that says, Dear Chris, thank you for your application. You have, you know, your credentials and everything are great, but we're considering other candidates. Keep your motivation high and, you know, stay focused on your goal. The first time I got that letter, I was like, oh, okay. They want me. They like my credentials. I'm gonna, you know, go for the next one. And the next one, and I got the second Dear John letter. Guess what I noticed? It said the exact same thing. The only thing that changed was the date. I was like, wait a minute, you're using a template? Everybody gets this letter. And then by the 5th time, that's when I faced that moment because I had started to become pretty bitter. And it was, you know what, I'm not getting a job because I'm Black. I'm not getting a job because I'm young. I'm not getting a job because this is a good old boy network. I'm not getting a job because of all these other things. And I had one brother that stepped into my life, man of faith, and he had just became a director in IT. He said, you know, he had this raspy voice. He said, young brother, I prayed about you the other day, and I just got a message to tell you. You ever thought maybe it's you? And he said, you ever thought your motives are wrong? That it's all about you? And that ain't leadership. That ain't leadership in FedEx. That ain't leadership in God's house. That ain't leadership in your family. Matter of fact, how your wife doing? Is she even following you? And that hurt. Ooh, ooh, that hurt. Because what he didn't know is me and my wife were going back and forth you know, and I was trying to prove to her that I'm the husband. And so I was struggling to be a leader in my own personal life. And he was like, master that first. And that was when this picture became fixated on my wall in my house. And I've yet to bring it up here to Pittsburgh, but it's en route. And then the title of the picture is He Ain't Heavy by Gilbert Young. And if you get a chance, go Google it. He Ain't Heavy. It's an arm reaching down from a cliff and a hand reaching up. And when I realized, when we go back to, and the person that had that picture was the mentor, both Anthony and I shared in Inroads, had that picture on his wall. And he made me look at that picture, and he challenged me to look at it and realize that we should always be both hands. One hand should always be lifted up, and one hand should always be lifted down. But if you think about that posture as a leader, that means now your core is exposed. And we don't like to be vulnerable and expose ourselves. He said, but that's the key to your success. And then when I went into my prayer closet and started going, okay, all right, Lord, I need you to speak to me. What? I done got my master's degree. I done did all of those things. And literally I heard him say, he said, you think I care about any of that? I gave you a purpose, and I need you to figure out what that is. And that was when I read Purpose Driven Life and recognized that my purpose in life was to help people reach their full potential. And so that was when the seed got planted that would lead me to where I am today, because it became this burning thing in my spirit that I just started volunteering at every nonprofit, community center. I am on the street. I am anybody that's looking for a career and needing help reaching their full potential. I'm all in, nights and weekends. Until finally somebody at FedEx said, well, why don't you move over to HR? And I told my wife, no, I'm not doing that. I'm actually going to leave the company. I'm going to go in the nonprofit space full time. And she was, by this point, I got to be honest with y'all, I'm a director, so I'm making some really good money. And my wife go, you crazy. If you think you should leave that director job at FedEx and go into the nonprofit space, you're going that's emotional. So I said, okay, I'm gonna prove it to you. I put together a budget, a 2-year plan, transition. And what ended up happening was while I was in that period of the 2 years planning the transition from corporate America to not-for-profit, I actually made a transition to HR, driving workforce strategy. I liked it. And then the date, September 2016, was when I was going to leave. And in that month, I got presented with the offer to become vice president, driving workforce strategy and hiring for the company globally. And it was one of those moments where I went in my prayer closet and go, Lord, you testing me? It's a test. You want to see if I will follow the money, or I'm going to walk away from the money. And literally, I heard the Lord's voice, Chris. He said, I never told you to leave. Get out of your feelings. That wasn't the plan. He said, I need more representation in corporate America and at the highest level. I'm promoting you. It just never was in IT. It was in HR, because that's where you can have an impact. And so that was what drove the shift. It was me planning to leave the company and go into the nonprofit space. But I actually being able to be in a seat such as this, you know, I'm changing policies around degree required for IT developers and going, you don't need a degree. My 12-year-old son can develop for fun. And so can your nephew, kids. I mean, we all know this. So kids in underserved communities are growing up with this skill. Then when they graduate high school, if they don't have the means to go straight to college, why don't we let them come in and apply that skill? And if we've got organizations like WorkFaith that can put the wraparound skills around them and give them those life skills and address the trauma in their life, then they can have that same career path that I've had. So I know that was long-winded, Anthony, but you know how I get when you get me on that. So that gets me fired up.
you hit it exactly where I wanted you to hit it. That was so good, actually. I'm grateful you shared that. And you know, to your point, you have been able to do some radical things in a positive sense. You know, again, because of your background, I don't think anyone else coming into a role like that at FedEx would do. I mean, you're literally changing policies in the company, and I want to make sure people hear that you know, formally roles that formally required a degree, you're releasing, you're showing proof and validation and empirical data to back why you're making those decisions. And again, I have such an appreciation for us coming from where we've come from, because you're being a positive disruptor and making and creating pathways and opportunities for other people who may not, or if you weren't in that role, there are people who wouldn't have a shot. And because of your background, you're giving people a chance who wouldn't normally have a chance. And that's exactly what, you know, we do at WorkFaith. And obviously you and I have been living this dream for years. Man, quickly, before we open up for Q&A, let's talk about C4 leadership.
Yeah, man.
Chris has officially published his first book. And man, we have been talking about it for years. It was like so many people have told him, and, you know, obviously me, but so many people have said, Chris, you got so much in your head. You got to share this with the rest of the world. So give us the quick drop on C4 leadership, and then we'll tell people where they can find it, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the whole concept of the book started when I was sitting with Fred Smith, founder and chairman of FedEx, at the table. Like, this is his staff meeting. And literally at that table, I had a moment where I'm like nervous, sweating, and in my mind thinking I'm not supposed to be there. And maybe I'm only there because, you know, I'm the token in the room, and having those self-doubt. And then he walks up to me, reaches out his hand and says, "Hey, Chris, welcome. I'm glad you're here." And at that moment, I go, how did I get here? And that was when I started thinking back over my whole career, and then asking myself, what's the repeatable framework? What are the things that people can take away and get to that seat at the table without changing who you are? Matter of fact, bring all of who you are, including your faith. And that don't mean I walk around with what would Jesus do on my chest. But I guarantee you, everybody in here know what my faith is. And so, that can breed success. So it really breaks down to, once you now set that goal, these 4 C's that shatter the glass ceiling and any barriers in that way. That first C being now being a consumer of information. We often have said, and you hear people talk about in a career, that it's not what you know, it's who you know. I say that's false. And even if you go into scripture tells you that's false. My people perish for lack of knowledge. So we have to be continuously consuming information, but then we got to connect the dots. You know, you got to connect the dots between the information you've consumed and the problems that this business is trying to solve. And that was why, for me, it's like, wait a minute, I want to help people in underserved communities. The problem that we're trying to solve at FedEx is hiring enough people to get our job done. Oh, well, I can get underserved, out of the underserved community, kids that are graduating with skills in IT. And if I partner them with the right organization that teach them the hard skills and how to do it, then I can hire them. And I just now got a pipeline that no other company is thinking about. So that was what kind of got me on the radar. But once you consume the information and connect the dots, now it's critical, the skill of being able to communicate that and communicate it in story form. Because once you start managing large organizations and reaching large audiences, it's the stories that stick. Many people won't remember a vision or a mission statement, but they'll remember a story that you told about the statement. Because often, I mean, I think it was Maya Angelou that said, you know, people may not always remember what you said, but they never forget how you made them feel. And stories invoke a feeling that get people fired up and passionate to go after something. And so when you can take what you've consumed and the dots you connected and put it into a story that can get people fired up that they don't forget it, now the final C, you can go coach other people forward. And so those 4 C's when they come together, create this explosion that'll shatter any glass ceiling in anybody's way.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, man,
Yep.
I'm going to open up. I could ask you 1,000 more questions, but I'm going to open up the chat box now for Q&A. And Chris, if we could do a speed round, a lot of people
Oh, yeah.
have questions for you. So whoa, they're starting to flow in. So,
All right, fire away.
So now that you're on the board of WorkFaith, what impact do you hope to make for the organization?
I'm excited. I mean, I know they're right there in the Houston area. With the reentry program, I really want to do some things in that space that really change the thinking of corporate America around reentry. There were a lot of political conversations about banning the box, but that's just the start. We've got to change thinking and mindset and policies that prevent the reentry candidate and giving somebody a second chance. And once we can shift that thinking, now it's a continuous pipeline. And now you tell the stories of those success and people go, wait a minute, this is possible. And so, my thinking around there is now, how do we create those links that make connecting this group of people to these possibilities where they're sitting in my seat talking to you? That's where I'm excited to jump in and help move the organization forward.
Here's the next question. What do you feel are America's highest talent priorities now?
Interesting. So obviously, you talk to anybody, they're going to talk about the, IT talent, data, insights, and that's good from a national narrative conversation. And it's true. I don't take anything away from that. Blue collar jobs. There is a growing need and just a total absenteeism of blue collar jobs. I mean, think about how hard it is for you to find a good plumber, electrician, somebody to work on your heat and air. I mean, anytime I try and find someone, you call all of your friends, and when they give you that one good name, you save it in your phone, and you hope that person calls you back because they got time to see you. Unfortunately, we've had this narrative for 2 generations in school that blue collar is bad, white collar is good. We've got to change that thinking, because I know plenty of electricians that are making $100,000, $200,000 a year. I know plenty plumbers that are making 6-figure salaries. I know plenty of leaders in FedEx that started as package handlers unloading a truck and are making 6-figure salaries. So there is that blue collar path, and those are the opportunities that we need to focus in on and show people that that's possible.
Absolutely, Chris. I remember you telling me the story of the highest ranking African American at FedEx who sits in Fred Smith's C-suite office is a non-college degreed executive, and he's the highest ranking African American in the entire company.
Well, our former CEO of Fedex Ground, which is, like I said, now a $23 billion company, he's since retired, no degree.
Yep.
Started the company washing trucks.
Yep.
And literally just grit, hard work, show up on time, learn the craft of leadership. And I always say leadership is a craft. You got to study it. You got to read up on it. You got to watch it and develop your craft. And so that you can get people to follow you and be passionate to go after the goal. And he was an individual that did that. And like I said, rose to CEO, never had a degree. We don't tell enough of those stories.
Chris, in fact, talk a little bit about, because, again, you know me well, and I know our team and just people in general, right? And I'm known as a hard driving, ambitious, talk about work ethic, man, to help educate, to your point, how did this gentleman go from washing trucks to CEO? Why don't you talk a little bit about work ethic? You mentioned earlier how when you were running the command center, it was 24/7. You were willing to pay the price and make the sacrifices that have gotten you to where you are today. Talk about that mindset shift, because I think in all due respect, as I continue to see generational transitions, I think to your point on losing sight of the blue collar spirit, you know, what I like to tell people, you know, I wear a white collar, but I got a blue collar grind, right? And I'm blue collar at heart. I mean, my stepfather was blue. Everybody in my family was blue collar, you know. So talk about that, man. Talk about the importance of work ethic and doing what you say you're gonna do.
Well, you know, I'm gonna share this story with you because when I first became a director in IT, and I was director of our help desk. So you call, you know, PC not working, this was the group you call. So I just became director. I'm 32 years old, so I'm, you know, young. I've got 8 managers working for me, and, you know, team leads working for them, and then 24/7 monitoring the help desk. So I had one young lady, because we have an open door policy that says, hey, I want to meet with you. Hey, come on in. So she walks in, and, well dressed, articulate, professional. So I go, okay, sit down, have a seat. And I was like, how can I help you? She said, well, you know, I understand the chain of command, and I'm just letting you know because I know you don't have any, you can't do anything about it, but, you know, I'll just let you know first. But it's ridiculous what y'all paying me. I'm like, wow, okay. Do tell. She's like, yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, and I have been here 8 months, and I figured by now y'all would have done something about it. But I've been talking to my friends and family, and they're like offended that how is FedEx taking advantage of you? How dare they take advantage of you? And so I just need to put you on notice so that you can go talk to your boss. And then she does me like this, go talk to your boss about addressing this situation, because I can't even believe y'all offered me this salary. I'm like, wow. And so I'm like, help me understand why you feel that way. She was like, well, I got my master's degree. You know, I got 10 years of experience leading this, leading that, leading this. And, you know, and y'all are not paying me for it. So I go, okay. So I get up from my desk. I walk over and get a box of clinics and sit it on the table. And she was like, what's that for? I was like, you don't need that in a minute because it's my turn. I said, I just got a couple of questions for you. Number one, what's my vision for this organization? Yep, crickets. And she was like, well, what does that have to do with anything? Oh, just a few questions. Question number 2, what's the mission of this organization? And she stepped back and just kind of had this confused look. I said, what is our strategies? In our town hall meeting last week, where I told everybody in the organization what the vision was and we discussed the mission, I laid out 4 key strategies for how we were going to achieve it. Name me 2 of them. Couldn't name 2 of the strategies. I said, that's okay. What are your objectives for the year? Didn't even know her objectives for the year. I said, but let me get this straight. I laid out a vision and where we're trying to get to that you don't know. We show up every day to achieve a mission, and you don't understand the mission. We laid out strategies on how to get to this vision. You don't know what the strategies are. Even though I sent it in email, I recapped it in email to the entire organization. And you don't even know what your own objectives are. So help me understand how your master's degree, your 10 years experience, and all these things you've done at other companies is going to benefit me, but I'm supposed to pay you for it? No, that's not how this works. So when you talk about work ethic, step number 1, understand the goal. And now how can you help contribute to that goal? Because it ain't about you. Quite frankly, I could care less about your master's degree, your 10 years experience, and anything you've done in the past. We grit and grind right here. It's about this work. And if you can't add value to it, get out the way. We well past these days. You know, who's ready to roll up their sleeves and work? And if you can bring insights from your master's degree, insights from your 10 years experience, insights that help us achieve that, there ain't no problem paying you. So don't ever do that.
Oh, hey, yeah. So hey, we are definitely cut from the, you are, man, we're cut from the same cloth. I mean, and frankly, Chris, when we think of work faith, right, we have and this is a kingdom assignment. So the level of excellence
Yeah.
for God's kingdom, in my opinion, I assert value in general, right, in any role you're in, but we're constantly preaching that with the people we serve and the mission that God has called us to, man. We're trying to live that out. So thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad that you shared that. It is spot on and timely. And I'm grateful that our team will have the opportunity to hear that. And yeah, thank you so much. And we have a couple more questions that I want to wrap up. So what are the opportunities for like-minded individuals to help FedEx and WorkFaith? I mean, you can specifically speak to FedEx, like what is that? I'm not sure what that looks like, but if people want to come alongside the company and add value, what does that look like for them?
Well, I mean, we've obviously got opportunities in the company for, permanent full-time positions. So, I mean, definitely feel free to go out there, careers.fedex.com. My information, Anthony has my information if you want to connect with me on some of those. Every vertical from IT, marketing, sales, engineering, maintenance, and of course, running our operations are plentiful. But also the coming alongside, we have what we call FedEx Cares, and that's where we are very intentional about strategic relationships with nonprofits across the country that are doing that work, feet on the street. When you think about that image, he ain't heavy in the hand reaching down from a cliff. The reality is we can only reach so far. And what we've realized is while we can't walk the streets in the community, I can partner with the nonprofit that's walking the feet on the street in the community. So if you are with them and I connect with them, all I tell you to do is reach your hand up to that organization, and I'm going to reach my hand down to that organization, and all of us stay connected. So that's how you connect in with us, either directly or through those organizations, and then we pull people up together.
Absolutely. Last question I'm not sure I got the full. It says, have you taken this? I'm not sure what this means to corporate America, such as companies that are really less diverse, and if so, have they been receptive? I'm not sure if she was referring to your book or what there, but his vision, your vision. Have you have you taken your vision?
So I've done some work with first the Obama administration and the Trump administration, all politics aside, because at the end of the day, truth speaks, and helping pull people up helps everyone. So it's been quite receptive. I did talk about it on C-SPAN. That's probably about 2 years ago. Yeah. Really now pushing corporate America to shift some of the traditional views, and my HR colleagues across corporations to shift the traditional views. For example, jobs that shouldn't require a degree. And remove that barrier, and now start to let people in with the skill set and let them leverage benefits like tuition reimbursement to get their degree while they're doing the job that they got the skill for, so that they can move up in their career. So yeah, I am starting to see corporate America make that shift, and partly out of necessity.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, in fact, everyone, I have the privilege of I'm going to be moderating a panel with Chris and 3 or 4 other major Fortune 500 CHROs coming up in November, and so we're going to be having even more conversation around that in the future. There are some CHROs, SVPs, and HR, et cetera, like Chris, who lead at the highest levels in the world in their spaces, and we're going to be having some more conversations about some of the disruptive things that they're doing to really, create a new foundation for what hiring practices, diversity and inclusion, et cetera, looks like going forward. So, man, Chris, it's been a tremendous honor to have you on board here today, man. I'm so excited that God brought us together and that we continue to be able to work so closely together. It was a joy for me to be able to share you and your wisdom and your experience with the team here. Tell everybody finally about the last thing I want to have you share is, well, one, I want you to share how people can get in touch with you, how you want them to follow you, Instagram, Facebook, share that. But then two, share, because I think it's just a fun story of the work you were doing with Google. And we can close that. Yeah. Sure
thing. Yeah. So chriswinton.com, you can go out there and find me. I'm primarily on LinkedIn. That's the best way to follow me. And if you want to connect with me directly, c4@chriswinton.com, just shoot me a note. The work with Google, that was pretty cool. So, the economy was at full employment, up until, March of this year. And so we were working together and we found out that people were struggling to get jobs because of what they searched on Google for didn't match job titles. So reached out to some of my, IT friends that worked with Google and say, hey, let's partner together. I think we can solve this. And long story short, we end up working together on an algorithm where if you type warehouse job and you're in Pittsburgh, the algorithm recognizes that where you live within a 10-mile radius is a FedEx facility where we're hiring package handlers. And that's a job that you may enjoy. And so the algorithm brings that to you first. And the success of it is what helped us hire. When we first kicked it off with Google, we were their pilot about 3 years ago, and we hired 40,000 package handlers in 10 weeks. And so Google took that to market, and that's what you now know as Google for Jobs. And so we're working on part 2 of that, which I'm pretty excited about. You know how if you go out and search for outdoor furniture or, bed sheets, and then every time you log into Facebook, your email or anything, you see ads for bed sheets and outdoor furniture everywhere you go. We're now working on where as you search for jobs online, jobs now show up like ads, and they're more tailored to your search patterns. So now you don't even have to go look for the jobs that fit you. They come to you. So I'm excited about that one, and when we can work together and get that to market. So good stuff to come.
Hey, the only regret I had when you told me that story a couple years back, I was like, man, they got you. I wish you could benefit from the royalties of Google.
I know.
They took your idea and ran with it.
They ran with that. Hey.
But hey, man,
helping people reach their full potential.
Yep. But no, man, we thank you so much. And again, of course, welcome you aboard as a board member, WorkFaith. And more importantly, of course, I just love you as my brother and my great friend. And thank you for carving out time, because your schedule is nuts. So the fact that you carved out this time to be with us, we appreciate it, man. And we'll be in touch very soon. Thank you so much.